every single one of you knows way more about your native language or languages than you even realize you know. And that's why I love studying linguistics. We try to figure out the rules and structures in our minds that allow all of us to communicate using human language. For example, something we know about language is that words are a chunk that we store in our minds. And one way I know this is if I say banana, you all associate that with a meaning. But what's less clear is whether syllables are similarly stored in our minds. Maybe your mental dictionary entry for banana is broken into constituent subparts, banana. But why would that matter? Well, I study phonology, which deals with language sounds. And in order to figure out the rules and structures of phonology, I need to know what are the basic building blocks I'm working with. So for example, I work with speakers of a language called Sutujil, which is a Mayan language spoken mainly in Guatemala. And there's a pattern in Sutujil where certain sounds, like L, change when they happen at the ends of syllables, la versus ash, which is cool. But it also presents a puzzle to phonologists who believe that these types of alternations in certain positions need to be motivated. They need to make things easier to pronounce or to perceive. And this doesn't seem to be the case with syllable final L. But there is a possible explanation, and it's something called domain generalization. All I mean by domain is chunks of language here, like phrases, words, or syllables. The idea is that at the ends of longer phrases, or longer utterances in general, changing L does actually make sense. It makes it easier to pronounce. What happens is when learners, let's say typically infant learners of this language, hear this pattern that occurs at the ends of longer domains, they interpret it as a pattern that applies at smaller domains like the word or the syllable. In other words, they're generalizing from utterance final syllables to all syllables. But in order to generalize over syllables, these learners need to have syllables in their heads that they're generalizing over, and we don't know if this is possible. So I did what's called an artificial language learning experiment. In this type of experiment, participants are exposed to utterances in a made-up language that I carefully controlled and designed. And I presented a pattern. In this case, the pattern had to do with R not being allowed at the ends of utterances. Then there's a testing phase. And in the testing phase, participants hear new utterances, and they're asked a simple question. Does this sound like the language you've been learning, or is there something wrong or off? The hypothesis is that if they've learned the pattern, probably subconsciously, they're going to reject utterances that end in R. And if they generalize this to a syllable final pattern, then they're going to also dislike R at the ends of any syllables, even if they're not utterance final. The results of my experiment were that participants did show evidence of learning the pattern and also generalizing it to the syllable level. And this suggests that syllable structure does exist in our minds, which is just one small piece of the puzzle of how humans do language. Thank you.